Hey guys, welcome back to Caribbean Toots. We are continuing the chemistry syllabus, and this is section A, 2.6 today, and we are looking at extracting sucrose from sugarcane. In the previous video, we looked at different separation methods, so you can just check that video out before watching this video to have a better understanding on the methods that we're using today. But we are looking at several steps, and there are several methods of separation in the process of extracting sucrose from sugarcane, so this should be really fun. We're going to look at all these steps and finally finish at centrifugation. Okay, so if you want to extract sucrose, if you want to extract sucrose from sugarcane, the first thing that you need is sugarcane. So we're starting at the sugarcane fields. We get some sugarcane from the sugarcane fields, and we put this sugarcane, the stalks of sugarcane, into what we call the feeder table, where the sugarcane stalks are actually cut into smaller pieces. So at the feeder table, the stalks are cut into smaller pieces so that they're easier to manipulate. So we have these small pieces of cane, and now we're going to crush them. So the small pieces of cane are going to go into what we call a roller mill. So when we have the small pieces of cane, we put it in what we call a roller mill, and in the roller mill, the cane stalks are crushed and sprayed with water so that the sucrose from the sugarcane cells can actually dissolve in this water. So we have crushing here, which is the first major step in this extraction process. Crushing, and then we spray it with water so that the sucrose from the cells can just dissolve in it, because we're really looking for juice. Spray it with water. So after we crush it, we're going to have some trash, and this trash is what we call bagasse. So the bagasse is not what we're looking for. This is really trash. However, it's very useful because what they do, they send it to the furnace, and the heat from the furnace is used to evaporate some water, and this water can help generate some electricity for the rest of the processes taking place. So we heat the bagasse, and the steam can be used to generate some electricity. Also, this heat can be used later on in boilers or evaporators. You'll see what the purpose of those are. So we dealt with our bagasse, and now we have some dilute juice, because you remember we crushed the sugarcane, sprayed it with water, and now we have some sucrose in some water. So we say that's dilute juice. Dilute juice. Alright, before I get to that, I just want to highlight the main processes. So I'm just going to call this crushing. So we can call that crushing. That's one of the major steps. Alright, so now we have some dilute juice, and we're going to put it in a settling tank. Now the purpose of this settling tank is 1, to precipitate the impurities, and 2, to neutralize the acidity of the juice. So we're going to precipitate some impurities. How do we do that? We add some calcium hydroxide. So in the settling tank, we're going to add our dilute juice, and we add some calcium hydroxide, which helps to precipitate the impurities, and it also helps to neutralize the juice, to neutralize the acidic juice, so that the sucrose won't break down into glucose and fructose, because those aren't the sugars that we're looking for. We're looking for sucrose, and because we don't want it to break down, we neutralize its acidity. So what do we have now? We have some dilute juice with its muddy impurities kind of precipitated. So we're going to say that we have some muddy impurities. And in order for us to get rid of these muddy impurities out of the juice, we're going to put it through a rotary filter. Now this rotary filter just like in simple filtration, we're going to use it to separate the solid particles from the liquid particles because they're miscible. So we use a rotary filter, we pass it through, and we filter out these muddy impurities. We filter out the muddy impurities from our juice. And sometimes they actually wash the muddy impurities just so that they can extract all of the sucrose. So sometimes they wash these muddy impurities to extract all the sucrose that could possibly be left in it. So wash impurities. And then they return these muddy impurities to the fields. So they send the muddy impurities back to the fields. Back to fields. Alright, great. So now what we have is some clear juice. So I'm going to call this clear juice. So we're sending the clear juice from the rotary filter to the boilers or evaporators. So remember, our juice is clear, but it's still dilute. And what we're looking for is sugar crystals or molasses. So remember, what we have right now is clear, dilute juice. So we're going to send it through the boilers or evaporators to help us get that concentration that we're looking for. Because most of what we have right now is just water. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for sugar. So we send it to the boilers or evaporators. So at the boilers or evaporations, the main process taking place here is vacuum distillation. What we're trying to do is get rid of that solvent, that water, and separate it from or sugar or crystals of sugar. So we pass it through the boilers or evaporators at high temperatures. So it's very high temperatures. And we try to evaporate or boil off that solvent, that water that's dissolved in your sugar. And this takes place at reduced pressure. This usually takes place at reduced pressure. So this process, just to highlight, I didn't do this one. This was filtration. This was sedimentation. And this is now vacuum distillation. Alright. And you can see an arrow here coming from the furnace. The heat from the furnace helps us to boil or evaporate the solvent from our clear juice. Alright. So now we have some concentrated juice or some syrup. So the syrup is really concentrated. We boil off most of the solvent, if not all. So really concentrated juice we have here. So we call this syrup. Concentrated juice. So now we're sending our syrup or concentrated juice into what we call a vacuum pan. Now in a vacuum pan, a process called crystallization takes place. Crystallization is basically a process we use to separate a solid solute from a solution. So in a vacuum pan, we have the process of crystallization taking place. Alright, so in a vacuum pan, we have a process called crystallization. And the syrup is crystallized at low pressure just to prevent caramelization of the syrup. Because we're not looking for caramelization, we're looking for real sugar crystals here. So we have crystallization taking place. Crystallized at low pressure. And this low pressure is just to prevent caramelization. Because as I said before, we're looking for crystals, not caramel. Alright, so now we've run our syrup through a vacuum pan. What are we left with? We're left with something called mascuite. Mascuite is a combination of molasses and sugar crystals. So we have mascuite. Let me write that word for you guys. Massecute. masculites, and this masculite is going to be centrifuged. Now in centrifugation, what basically happens is that the mixture is spun at really high speeds, and the heavier particle, which in this case would be the solid crystal, kind of fly out of the centrifuge, leaving the molasses inside. So in centrifugation, we are separating the molasses from the sugar. Now that we have centrifuged this mixture of molasses and sugar, we can separate them. We can get our molasses and we can get our sugar. Molasses can be further processed to get alcohol, rum, or for animal feed, and our sugar can just be sent to the supermarkets or the stores. Sometimes when we have the mixture of molasses and when we have the molasses separated from the sugar crystals, we put it back into the vacuum pan for further crystallization so we can get even more sugar crystals. So this is really unrefined sugar that we're getting here, and molasses. Let me just write that. Unrefined or brown sugar. Unrefined, or you can also call it brown sugar. That's unbleached sugar, and molasses. Oh, this process is centrifugation. Great! So let's recap really quickly. So we're trying to extract some sucrose from sugarcane. The first thing we need to do is get the sugarcane. We put it through a feeder table. The stalks are cut into smaller pieces. The smaller pieces go to a roller mill. They're crushed and sprayed with water. That's the first main step, crushing. The bagasse is burned in a furnace, but the dilute juice from the crushing method is put in a settling tank where calcium hydroxide or lime helps precipitate the impurities and neutralize the acidic juice, just to prevent it from breaking down into fructose and glucose. Then we have our mud impurities that are sent through a rotary filter. The filter, it filters muddy impurities, and we wash the impurities for further dilution of the sucrose if you want more. And these muddy impurities are sent back into the fields. We are now, that was the process of filtration. Yes. So we have 1 crushing, 2 sedimentation at the settling tank, 3 filtration at the rotary filter. The clear juice is sent to the boilers or evaporators at the process of vacuum distillation. And then after this we have some concentrated syrup sent to a vacuum pan where it is crystallized, and this mixture, mascuite, is going to be sent to be centrifuged or separated. That's molasses separated from the sugar, so we have centrifugation. And then we can sell the molasses and sell the brown sugar. Alright, so that's the end of this video, guys.